It's really nice to see so many friends we've seen before. If I haven't had a chance to meet you, please do come and say hello. My team is responsible in Canada for everything other basically than the big banks, everything else in the ecosystem. So I'm here to introduce Jeet. She's going to come on in just a moment. Before she comes on, I want to touch on a couple of things from Mastercard's perspective. I want to touch on one thing, which is the evolving nature of the ecosystem. When we talk about customer needs, this morning we talked a lot about AI. We talked a lot about the shifting nature of generative AI. I like to take a step back. As an organization, we like to take a step back and say, well, all of that is in service of what? It's in service of customer needs. It's in service of pain points. It's in service of driving businesses forward. So before we start to look at our trends of where we think payments and fintech are going to go over the next 10, 12, 15 years, we actually took a step back and said, what are the three things that we think are changing, are evolving, that are going to have a material impact on businesses and pain points and solutions going forward? The three that we allocated and isolated off to the side, one were after the last 4 years and over the COVID time period, customers and people more generally are feeling more resilient. They're feeling that they can take on more risk, are a little bit more excited potentially with new innovations, AI just being one of those. The second is a movement away from a singular customer journey. So we talked a lot about, I used to work at a financial institution. We spend a lot of time with banks and merchants across the country. One person's journey through the bank and in their experiences. That is evolving. What we're learning is that folks are looking and having different experiences, which is forcing them to go and move in a certain direction that may not be exactly the way you had anticipated. So how do you anticipate that? How do you set yourself up for success? And the final is, as a result of both of those two things taken together, people are really taking control of their banking. They're taking control of their financial lives. They're taking control of their future. So those three things taken together, we then said, well, where do we think payments and fintech and the movement's going to move over the next 10, 12, 15 years? We came out with three things that we're paying attention to. One, for those taking notes, reimagining money. So digital, ubiquitous wallets, tokenization. This is a pretty important topic that if you haven't started thinking about, now's a really good time to start thinking about. Two, intelligent experiences. So we talk a lot about embedded finance and then the future of money from that perspective. And finally, a sustainable future. So we have the three things that we've talked about. These are the three things that we're looking very closely at, and I want to bring that to your attention before we bring Jeet on, who's going to talk about Canada. The last thing, before my 5 minutes are up, is the fintech ecosystem in Canada is all about partnerships. So when we, Mastercard, we're looking, I've got team members here, Maria Reisenberg, Richard Chirabi. If you have an opportunity to either meet myself or them, please do have that conversation about where to from here. Also, I want to thank Vopay for being such a great partner of ours. I want to call them out specifically here. They're doing some pretty neat stuff across embedded finance, across payments, and where we're headed in the future. I want to bring that to everyone's attention here. So, with that, let's bring on Jeet and hear her exciting insights about the ecosystem. Come on over.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. A great day, by the way, for the conference, and really makes me happy to see so many familiar faces here in the audience. Always great to kind of be here in person for this conference every year. So this is my third year speaking here. And I think most of you might know a little bit about Fathom Foresight, if not a lot. So for those who don't, just a quick intro. We are a knowledge as a service platform, have been in the market for 3 years. We just celebrated our 3rd anniversary. And what we do is keep track and pulse of what's happening in the market. And when it comes to fintech and financial innovation, I usually say this, it's no longer an industry. It's a space where every major company in the world is now entering. You think of the tech giants, the big automobile players, the retailers, everybody has either launched or is planning to, or figuring out a partnership to launch a product in the financial services space. So that's all that we track. And we also have the most exhaustive database of all the fintech products and companies that are operating here in Canada. Mind you, I say operating and not headquartered, which means the global companies that are working and offering services to the Canadians are part of our mandate and what we track. So at this 3-year anniversary, I've had a great opportunity to work with some of the biggest companies in the country. So we talk about some of the big banks, the top credit unions, Crown Corps, Big Four consulting firms. And it's been a great journey, and we have learned a lot during this time. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to now tell you that we are entering a second phase of our growth. We are launching something that is truly groundbreaking and will change the face of how you see market intelligence and market information being accessed, both by your executives, but by your analyst teams, by your product, and by your strategy teams as well. So we are launching Fathom Foresight 2.0, which is AI-powered financial innovation intelligence. Think of getting in real time to know about your competitor's strategy. Think of what one of your competitor, let's say, is doing in their AI strategy, or maybe in terms of their small business banking strategy. I say that because that's, I think, on top of mind of all FIs at this point in Canada. Imagine the amount of time that could be saved, because all of that will happen in real time on this platform. You can not just identify the fintechs that you want to partner with or acquire, but also do a due diligence on them on this platform in real time. So we are launching the first batch of our beta users next month. If you're interested, please do reach out. We'll be happy to have you as our beta user. But this is going live next month, and I'll be happy to have actually all of you onboarded to this. But with that, let me get into the topic of the presentation today, FinTech in Canada 2024 and beyond. I think this year, so far, we have seen a lot of activity. So I'm going to talk about some of the major trends that we are seeing, both from the perspective of the new entrants, the fintechs in the space, but also from the incumbent players, the big banks, the credit unions, insurance firms, wealth management firms, and so forth. So first one, I think I really want to talk about this one. I talked about this one last year too. Newcomers to Canada still remains a great focus of all the FIs in Canada. We do have, this is one of the fastest growing target segment for the banks, because this is the reason for a great population increase in Canada as well. So no wonder all the big banks, the credit unions, and even the fintechs are focused on launching solutions for the newcomers, the migrants, the permanent residents, the international students, and so forth. Big Six banks have specifically been very active in announcing their partnerships with some of the apps that are enabling newcomers to settle down in Canada, or partners like Nova Credit, which is a cross-border credit bureau. Scotiabank last year brought them to Canada, and recently BMO and RBC also announced, that was pretty recent, I think about a month ago, that those two also announced their partnership with Nova Credit. And one interesting one here that actually put a smile on my face, being from India, Simply Financial partnered with this singer and performer from India called Jeet to woo the, I guess, international immigrants from India and Asia overall. This is a performer who actually sold out the BC Place a couple of months ago and had a 54,000 people concert. So huge following, and hopefully Simply is getting some benefits out of the money they invested into this. And then, of course, we have the fintechs. They are taking notice of what's happening, and specifically, we are having fintechs from other parts of the world, Asia, Europe, and so forth, enter the country because we are seeing migrants come from those countries, and they have certain expectations. One, definitely a real-time payment capability, ability to move their money cross borders between Canada and their home country. So a lot of remittance, money transfer solutions that are being launched. The most recent one called Beacon that just also raised some money. It has one of the team members of Paytm, which is a huge thing in India, is launching that in Canada, and they are launching a prepaid card for immigrants in Canada. So before you even land in Canada, you would have a prepaid card, you could put your money into it and start spending right out of the airport. But a lot of solutions, and this is not in any way exhaustive, but I've tried to put the main logos here. We have 3,000 plus fintechs in the country, so if by any chance you don't see your logo here, it doesn't mean we don't track it or we don't take a notice of it. It's just that tough to put everybody, all the logos out here. The next one, which I think is pretty huge on agenda for the big banks, the credit unions, as well, is small businesses. We have seen a lot of efforts being made in this space since few years, but I think this year we have started to see some big launches from the banks as well. TD Bank actually just announced their partnership with Monet, and they are launching a SME dashboard, which gives real-time analysis into cash flow, competitive benchmarking with others in your industry for small businesses. Just yesterday, they also announced a TD e-commerce solutions, which will enable small businesses to set up a digital front and then also enable certain marketing, inventory management capabilities as well. So clearly, we are getting into a phase where it's no more about SME banking, but it's more about SME ecosystems. How do you become one-stop shop for everything your small business client wants to do? And there are many fintechs in the space that can enable that for you. One of those companies that I wanted to highlight is Teal. Right at the bottom here. So Teal provides embedded accounting services. If you're looking to embed accounting into, let's say, your online banking portal for SMEs, great solution out there. Obviously, we have the QuickBooks and Shopify and few other major players launching a lot of financial services like loans and credit cards and bill pay solutions. But we're also seeing some industry-specific companies see huge success in the country. I want to highlight Clio. So Clio is operating software for law firms. They've been in the market for a few years, based out of Burnaby, BC. They just raised the highest ever funding round in the Canadian tech venture history, $900 million round, Series F. And they're building an ecosystem for the law firms, but they have a lot of financial services adding on to their platform as well. They just launched their own proprietary accounting feature on the platform as well. So the other one is Gaia. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But it is operating software for internet service providers, and they also just raised some money. So industry-specific solutions, I think, is something that we are starting to see more of launch in Canada now. And as I said, of course, the big players, Square, Shopify, QuickBooks, Amazon, they continue to launch services for small businesses. But I think there's a bit of a shift now. For past few years, most of these companies were trying to play in merchant cash advance. So basically, they lend you money, and then it's deducted every day from the sale that you make as a percentage of that. So those were the repayment schedules. But I think we've seen a shift now where Shopify and even Amazon, they're getting into big ticket loans. So Amazon just announced a partnership last year with SellersFi, a company from US, through which they're offering a loan of up to $10 million to the merchants selling on Amazon. So it's no longer small ticket, and I think we got to take notice of that because it is definitely adding on to the competition in the market. And then, of course, the challenger banks. challenger banks specifically catering to small businesses is on a continued rise in the country. A lot of them are focusing on providing cross-border services, cross-border money transfer, multi-currency wallets, and so forth. And I think that's because the nature of small businesses over the pandemic phase has changed. Businesses have clients that are globally located now. They have employees and teams that are globally located. So solutions with a multi-currency account, multi-currency wallet, or a prepaid card that enables you to move money cross-border is really high on agenda of some of the new SME bank, challenger bank launches in the country. But we do have some, SME ecosystem is definitely something that has seen a huge traction in Canada. But consumer ecosystems are not behind. We are seeing some signals. There are some contenders of who could be the, let's say, super apps of North America. I wanted to put Klarna at top, and that's because of some of the recent moves that they've made. So Klarna just announced a checking account, which is basically looks and feels exactly like a bank account. You can move your money into it, used to spend it like any other bank account. They also launched a card product in US. They are going public in US next year as well. And if you look at Klarna and experience their app, it is basically a super app in many ways already. When you add the payment capabilities on top of all the shopping abilities that the app has, it literally becomes something similar to WeChat Pay, Alipay, or Paytm. It is yet the financial products, the card and the checking account, yet to be launched in Canada. But I think it's only a matter of time, and we'll probably see that even before the end of the year, maybe. And then Apple. Apple just made an announcement this year about Tap to Cash. So 2 iPhones, if you just bring them together, you can make a payment. You don't even have to know the name or the phone number or anything about a person who you're making the payment to. You just need to bring 2 iPhones together and you can transfer the money. Now, for sure, this is not available in Canada yet, like some of the other Apple financial services and payment products like Apple Cash and so forth. But I think, again, only a matter of time, because when you look at Apple's strategy, they have started to open their ecosystem. They just opened their NFC technology, which means developers, other than those that are building Apple, out of Apple ecosystem, they can start to use NFC on their own apps. So it's, I think, only a matter of time that a technology of Tap to Cash also is seen as a wider adoption within the Canadian ecosystem as well. And then, of course, some of the bigger challenger banks in the retail banking space, like Neo, Wealthsimple, I think now it's safe to call them a challenger bank, and no more, because they're no more playing in the wealth space or trading space anymore. Some very aggressive moves by them. They have launched a lot of high-interest saving accounts, but also they're offering a 500K CDIC coverage. That is obviously more than any other FI or FinTech that is offering in the country. And those are all the perks of embedded finance and banking as a service that they are making it possible. They also launched the mortgages in partnership with a fintech called Pine. So they're on their way to become, I guess, one-stop shop for all financial needs, at least for now. Same for Neo. They play full spectrum, have mortgages, now offer high-interest saving accounts and more as well. And then obviously, as we are seeing increase in embedded financial services, there is an increase in banking as a service offerings in the country as well. The recent 2 entrants, Nuvei, and the other one is Zumrails, which is actually based out of Montreal. They both have recently entered banking as a service and will enable other fintechs to launch financial services and prepaid card and other payment products. And also a lot of interest from banks and credit unions to enter this space and become issuing sponsors. Even though the list is not that huge, but I think we are starting to see a lot of signals of even some of the bigger institutions getting into BaaS space. And then some of the new launches, we are seeing a huge rise in fintech offerings that are being offered and operating in Canada at this point. So these are some of the fintechs that launched since last year. So 2023 and 2024 till date. And you can see a lot of launches in the AI and data space. And obviously, again, this is not exhaustive. We only cover what's publicly made available. So there are probably more solutions that are being launched, but a lot of AI and data related products being launched. The very on the top there, under AI and data, the company called DEC, not sure if you've heard of it, but it is a company that is providing alternative data for credit risk assessment. Apparently, it has some team from Flinks involved in this venture as well. But they're basically giving alternative data in terms of utility payments and some of the other payments that consumers are making globally. So it's not just Canada. They have, I think, data from over 30 countries that they are providing. Challenger banks, we are seeing some launches there. PFM, I think in anticipation of open banking, a lot of financial data aggregation kind of solutions where you can see all your financial accounts at one place. You could do analysis, budgeting, and so forth. A lot of launches around that space happening as well. And then, of course, credit score building. Rent reporting, I think, has become a norm now. A lot of companies have started to do that. But we continue to see more announcements around that. I think Coho recently made an announcement there. And these are some of the foreign fintechs, so companies outside, headquartered outside Canada that have launched since last year. As you can see over here, I've kept banking as a service at the top because, again, because of rise in embedded services, we are seeing a rise in and demand for banking as a service products as well. So Synctera bought into Canada by National Bank, but we have seen a few more launches since then. And then, of course, payments, a lot of cross-border payment services that are launching. Under lending, I think the trend is around offering embedded lending, so platforms that are enabling other platforms or other fintechs to embed lending products within their services. And then the banks, I think banks have gained a huge momentum over past few years in terms of partnering with fintechs. So this year we have seen over 30 partnerships so far. And this involves all the big 6 banks, some of the top credit unions, wealth management firms, and some of the common logos here, like Capintel, a player in wealth management space, working really well and getting a lot of partnerships from FIs. So is Conquest Planning. A lot of partnerships around digital transformation and using RPA and AI technologies. So I think we've built a huge momentum over the past few years, and it only continues to rise this year as well. And then funding, something that everybody loves to talk about. So this year so far, $782 million by 47 companies. These are all the companies that have raised funding. Some pretty huge rounds as well, like Brim raised an $85 million round. But we've seen a good variety this year. There have been Series A, a lot of Series A seed funding rounds, but also some later stage rounds as well. Compared to last year the funding was a little over 1 billion over the entire year. And before that, it was 3 billion. So in 2022, it was 3 billion. Last year, we did see a slump, but seems like things have started to pick up this year. Obviously, we'll wait until the end of the year to get to a final number. But we are seeing, I guess, a bit of an increase in traction there. Okay, next one is ESG. I think when we look at all the climate reports and ESG sustainability reports that the big banks have launched, you could make a sense of how many dollars are being committed. Billions of dollars have been announced that the companies will be spending, banks and other FIs will be spending over the next few years to get to a net zero target. So I just wanted to highlight here, and these might not be essentially fintech, but there are a lot of companies that are now offering services in Canada, enabling banks as well as other businesses to transition into net zero. And again, we've tried to be exhaustive. Obviously, we always see a few new players launching. I think something is off here. My presentation just went by. But OK, can we see what's wrong? OK. OK. So these are the ones that are actually offering carbon footprint measurement or ESG reporting services, but there are more. There are carbon credits and carbon market players. Clear Blue Markets, right at the top. It's a company based out of Toronto that RBC has majorly invested in. Carbon Place, this is a company that was bought in collaboration by 9 global banks, CIBC being one of them. Radical, a couple of years ago, BMO acquired them. So a lot of, I guess, traction here, but I just wanted to portray these out if you are looking for partners in this space. And lastly, data. I think I didn't talk about AI because I know there must be other sessions where you've heard a lot about that today. But we are seeing or entering into a phase where open banking will be soon launched in Canada. Analytics enabled by AI and Gen AI is on the rise. So it's definitely a period where a lot of financial services will be powered by data. A lot of personalization, a lot of new business models and revenue models and streams will generate, both for banks and for the fintechs in the ecosystem from this transition. But I think it's important that we consider the consumer here first. As we see more proliferation of data, we need to work on creating consumer trust. A lot of companies are being launched in the country around cybersecurity, fraud, ID verification, which is very much in trend with this trend here. So, and we are seeing a lot of banks partner with them actively as well. But this is something that I think would be high on priority over the next decade or so for all the FIs. OK, I just want to leave you with the key insights here. In terms of Canada, when we look at where state of financial innovation is, we have transitioned from a phase where long in the time, banks came into the ecosystem. They bundled all the financial services. Then came a phase of unbundling. So fintechs came in. They picked up products. So we had Lendtechs and WealthTechs and PayTechs and so forth. And we still have them, a very healthy ecosystem of 3,000 plus fintechs in the country. But now we have entered into something that is called rebundling. We are seeing that fintechs that have had a good success, they've started to integrate more financial products within their existing platform. Players like Shopify, who were providing other services, are starting to bundle financial services within their platforms. So kind of, I guess, a next phase of that, which is already happening globally, just not so much in Canada, is we'll see super apps, more super apps and ecosystems. We still don't have a super app in Canada. Hopefully, we'll see that soon. There will be data-driven business models that will be coming in. Emerging technologies, I think AI use cases, we've already heard of launches from TD, RBC. BMO just announced they're hiring a bunch of people in their AI team. So there is traction, and I think that will continue to increase. And then obviously, ESG activation is something that we'll see a lot of money and energy getting into over the next decade as well. But that's kind of it. And we do have a major announcement, another one. In partnership with Finance Montreal and Station FinTech Montreal, we are launching the half-yearly Quebec report. We do this every year. These are done on half-yearly basis. So if you could scan this QR code, you'll get the report both in English and French. And also, I saw a lot of people taking pictures during the presentation. We normally don't make this presentation public, but if you're interested, reach out to me or to Fathom Foresight, LinkedIn. I'll be happy to give this presentation to you. But with that, thank you all for your time, and hope to see you next year. Thanks.